Greetings, programs, and welcome back to the Awesome Friday podcast. My name is Matthew, and I'm your host. And joining me today is Simon, which is the usual way of doing things. It's just, I don't know why we don't just say that every time.
I've been here for years, man.
I keep trying to be clever, and it keeps not working. But it's like the definition of insanity. I keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
The perpetual special guest. Yes, hello, I'm here again. Nice to see you all, or hear you all, or have you with
you
us.
are. Glad to be in front of all of your earballs.
Yes.
How are you today? How are things going? How's your week in media consumption been?
My week in capital C content. We actually went out. We met in real life and went and watched a movie together.
We did.
Holy shit! Just like the old days.
We're gonna talk about that movie today.
What else did I consume this week? Well, the good news is that Strictly Come Dancing has restarted, and the Great British Bake Off has also restarted. So that is now, they get later and later each year, and that is now our autumn and winter TV content. That's all we need, and it's that's my Love Is Blind. Like, it's fantastic, and it's very, very different from the American version, which is called Dancing with the Stars. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's fascinating to see the format differences between the UK and the Americans. And the American one isn't very good. The UK one's fantastic, so we're enjoying that. Great British Bake Off. Unfortunately, I think it might be another season 2 where they might have collected the least dynamic and interesting set of people they could possibly found. So that's the problem with reality TV, is that you need to kind of predict who the quirky people are going to be. You need to have a mix, and I'm not sure they've got that mix right this year, so we'll see about that.
Oh yeah, and season 2, that was just a whole controversy with the stuff that happened. I have no idea. I've never
It's
watched.
like the season 3 of Big Brother.
Of course,
in England. Where the guy who won, called Craig, literally just lay on the couch and slept the whole time, and because he was in that middle ground, he didn't get voted out because he wasn't being a dick. He didn't garner attention for doing anything. He won because he was just the mid-range white dude in the whole thing.
The only reality TV show that my wife and I routinely watch, that we go out of our way to watch, is Top Chef. So, that is a, obviously food is subjective, but it is amazing to watch amazing chefs do their thing. And
who's your favorite pro chef? Mine is Brooke. That's the end of that discussion. That she is the best. Brooke Williamson is a genius level chef and gorgeous.
We love Brooke. We've seen her because she was on Top Chef twice. She was on a season, and then she was on an all-star season. And she's great.
Jet is great as well.
Yep. I'm a big fan personally of Bobby Flay. And I think we've talked about this before, but I will go to bat for Guy Fieri as the guy who is the literal best at describing the food that he's eating.
Yes. I don't disagree with you, because
I don't think he's the best chef, but I think in terms of being a chef on TV and the job that he has, which is like tasting the food and conveying that food to the audience, he is by far the best at it.
As a presenter, and that's really highlighted. I don't know if you've started watching Bobby's Triple Threat, which is him and one of the brothers and Brooke and I forget the third lady's name. And Bobby Flay is like presenting it solo, and I don't actually think that Bobby Flay is a very good lead presenter. I think he's a little bit he's a bit understated. He's a bit boring. And he's an
amazing competitor, but he's not the best presenter.
Right, exactly. Beat Bobby Flay is fantastic because his more TV trained mates come on and rip the shit out of him. But in Triple Threat, he's quite boring as a lead. And Guy Fieri is not boring at all. That's true.
Yeah, but it's more than not being boring. Like, he's way more like a born presenter than anyone else. But it's also just that, like, when it comes to taking a bite of food and then conveying what that bite of food tastes and feels like, there's no one else who can do it like he can. He can like distill the flavors and textures down into a thing where I'm like, I would like to eat that. Whereas most people go like, oh, this is so good. How did you like? Oh my God, it's so I'm just dying here. It's so good. Whereas Bobby Flay's like the interplay of these three things is what's making this. Like, I can't believe like he's
Mhm.
so much better at breaking down flavor profiles than everyone else.
That's right.
And I think it's an underrated skill as a food presenter. Anyway,
Well, he does have his own town, so
he
hopefully we can talk
does.
about flavor.
He does. Um, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what else we've been watching really. That we have such little time. We try not to watch hours of TV with the kids, obviously. So we don't tend to watch movies until the weekend. And then we did watch a movie Friday. Oh, we watched the only movie we could agree to watch is Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2,
hmm,
which is a perfect movie. It is one of the best comedies I've ever seen, and the animation is incredible. The writing is incredible. The timing of the delivery is incredible. If you've never seen the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatball movies, this is your sign to change that. The first one's really really good. The second is incredible and a great example of a sequel that iterates. It doesn't just repeat. It's
hmm.
fantastic. Really good.
Yeah, Lord and Miller, man. Lord and
Oh,
Miller
they are on it.
know they know
Absolutely.
what they're doing.
I really wish there's a parallel universe somewhere where their solo movie got made, and I just want to see like their Star Wars. I'd be
Hmm.
really interested to see their version of Star Wars, especially as by all accounts, all the story beats we got in the Ron Howard version are completely like backwards. Like the big train heist was meant to be the big finale, and they
Yep.
play it as a beginning piece. So I would love to. I would love to see the pre version of that. We never will, but I would love to see it.
Even just to read the script would be super interesting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Uh, good. So what do we what should we talk about this week then? What are we talking about?
We should probably talk about some movies. You know, one thing I started doing. I don't know if you don't really letterbox like I do, but did you hear? First off, did you hear Letterbox got acquired?
By who? I did not.
Yeah, they got acquired by a I guess like they're like a venture capital firm. But
Oh,
the
lovely.
the
That always
founders
goes
got
well.
bought out to the tune of $50 million, which I'm very happy for them. But
Wow.
also I'm a little worried because I love Letterboxd, and I'm worried that the based on the portfolio of other things that have been highly monetized, this group is bought. I'm a little worried about it.
Oh
And
well, that's shit because I do like Letterboxd. When I remember, it's actually been invaluable in trying to at the end of the year where we do our roundups. I don't remember anything, and it stopped
no,
me having to go through Wikipedia pages and list all the movies that I've seen.
yeah, well, my most interesting um, list thing that I've been doing I've been keeping a list every month. Started in the summer. I kind of don't know why I hadn't been doing it all along, but I started keeping lists of everything that I saw for the. I have two running lists for the year. One of like the stuff from this year that I saw, and then stuff this year that I saw for the first time that wasn't from this year. If that
Hmm.
makes sense. And then
Yep.
I just also started keeping monthly lists of like here are the things I saw for the first time this month,
Hmm.
no matter when they were from. And it turns out that that's been a really interesting experiment in like seeing what um, as my tastes change and evolve even over the last couple of months.
Yeah, I was going to say that's got to be a really, especially for someone in your line of work, and see the trend of the data, like almost analyzing your creative leanings, like what you tend to go towards. Although you are pretty good at watching anything that is available to you, but there must be some very clear trends as the kind of thing you watch when you want to relax or when you have certain like a spare time. What's your go-to movies? Like,
Yeah, it's also
what's it?
it's also just interesting to see like how many um, new things I can squeeze in a month.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like in July, I only watched 15 things that were new to me, and then in August I watched like 25 or some shit. And
Wow, holy
September's
shit!
just ended, and I watched I think like 18 or 19. So I mean, August
And
was
this is.
obviously bolstered by the fact that Fantasia was on, so I watched a bunch of festival films. But
Hmm.
and October will certainly be bolstered by VIF because there'll be a bunch of stuff that I watch. But
And this is
yeah,
meant to be you taking it easier than you used to. I mean, these are still incredible numbers.
I mean, this is just the new stuff. My wife and I watch like a movie every night, basically, right? So,
Mm,
um, but like I definitely like. So the most interesting thing to me is that I watched most of the Vincent Price, Roger Corman directed Edgar Allan Poe movies from the '60s in September. So
that's
actually,
cool.
if you look at my letterbox stats right now, Vincent Price is like my second most watched actor. um, and
That's
he's a
amazing.
super interesting performer. I got to say, it's weird because if you only know him from like The Simpsons and Tim Burton movies, he's still exactly the actor you think he is, which I think is really interesting. A real exercise in like uh he's old school in that he doesn't become the character, if that makes sense. You know how like
Yeah, yeah,
there's a
totally.
real starting in the '70s, there's a real trend of actors who like transmogrify themselves into a character, like change their
Mm-hmm.
entire mode of being. And Vincent Price is not from that school.
No,
He's just not.
no.
Um, but he's got a voice and a mustache like no one else in the business, so it works.
I find fascinating because method acting from the 70s really overtook uh, quote unquote serious performances, and it's such a
Hmm.
major part of the awards cycle as well. You always put it well, it's not the best acting, it's the most acting that gets the awards, and that's so connected with dedicating your body and your life to a role. And then you've got someone like Brian Cox, and he gave an interview after the end of Succession about how he utterly rejects method acting. He rolls up and he projects this character and doesn't become it, and he just like is just a load of bullshit. It's just rubbish. All these people running around like running like Dustin Hoffman did before Marathon Man, uh, running a mile before each shot in order to look tired. It's like, no, just act it. You just think about the character and think about what they would do, and you just act it, and then you leave it behind. And it's so refreshing to hear someone, and his performances in Succession have been lauded like across the board. I've never seen it, but the feedback you have,
Oh,
he's a brilliant, actor who treats acting roles as really flexible masks that you put on and you take them off, and you go home. And I kind of love that. I've been full circle with my own acting as well, and that's definitely kind of my approach to it now as well.
yeah. I think my problem with method acting, if like, I don't, not to disrespect method acting, but like my sort of problem with it is that because it overtook everything so wholly in the '70s and since then as well, um, it gets pretty regarded as our like only legitimate kind of acting, you know. So like
Absolutely.
when I watch like, and I see this with people, it's actually a big telling, like not like a red flag like we were talking about in the bonus episode, um, but uh, I find it interesting when people don't like classic films based on the acting styles, which are much more like stagey and big and
Yeah.
like playing for the back rows and not necessarily like transformative.
Hmm.
Um, because and like because as long as the scene is emotionally true, I don't think you necessarily need to be that transformative. It's
Yeah.
just not a thing. So
And the problem is that the public conception of method acting now has been really influenced by these fucking tools like Jared Leto, who interpret it as being a dick to everyone on stage, on screen, on set,
yeah.
and there's that's so far away from what method acting is and what it has ever been. It just really winds me up when it's described as like he got so into the part that he sent people use condoms and rats, and like that's not method acting at all. That's just being a dick. That's being a pretentious dick, and
Yeah.
it
There's
winds me up.
there's parts of that that I sort of get. Like I know that Hugh Laurie maintained his American accent 100% of the time on set on House, but that just makes
Hmm.
sense because it's
Yeah.
hard to switch between accents,
Oh
right?
my. Yeah.
Like
Yes. That's
like
an entirely different thing. Absolutely.
yeah. Um yeah, so there's definitely yeah, I don't get the whole like I don't break character and it's a whole thing.
So Daniel Day Lewis was famous for this as well, to the point where he'd be really rude to people on set because he's in character, and because he's in character, it's sacrosanct. You can't disturb Daniel. If he if he's rude to you and orders you around, it's because that's what the character's thinking. It's like no, fuck, like no, this is not a healthy way to engage with acting. It's meant to be pretending.
Hmm. It's meant to be
Oh
make
yeah,
believe.
it is make believe, and I think it's far healthier to treat it as a make believe thing than to let it overtake your life.
Yeah, that's true. Anywho, well, we
Okay.
should probably move on to the main show.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, if you're interested in my stats, you can check me out on Letterboxd, because
hmm
and it's in the show notes somewhere.
hmm
Because it's interesting. Before we move on, just a few moments of housekeeping first. So we're going to talk about two movies today. The WGA strike has thankfully ended, with the writers getting most, if not all, of what they wanted. But as of
Right.
right now, as of this recording, SAG-AFTRA is still on strike, and it's important again to note that none of the stuff we talk about would be even exist without the labor and love of the writers performers who make them. And as of this recording, SAG-AFTRA is meant to go back to the table with the AMPTP on Monday the 2nd. So here's hoping they also get everything they want.
hmm
And also, if you like the show, we do have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/MCSimpson. That'll be in the show notes. And you can subscribe for as little as $2 Canadian a month, which is like 50 cents American, and like 35 euros or 35, whatever the cents version of euros is. I don't actually know. Are they just called cents? Euro cents? You're from not Europe, so you should be able to know this, right?
Euro beans.
Oh, beans. Wonderful.
Yeah, we're going back to a collection of magical beans. That's the only true economy in Europe.
Oh, no, I'm talking about Europe, not England.
Well, I mean, we're in it when we want to be, and not when it counts. That's the important thing. We do exactly what we want at all times, and expect everyone to keep up.
Yeah, it does feel like that's over, though. Uh,
Well, England,
yeah,
yes, yeah, England does feel over. That's
yeah,
right.
a little bit. Um, anyway, the point is that $2 Canadian a month is not that much, and it helps us keep the lights on around here. If you, at the end of the show, if you go to this episode's homepage, there will also be JustWatch-powered links to um, go to where that'll take you to where you can stream the films, and if you use those links, they also help us keep the lights on. So please go do that.
Yes, please do.
Um, but let's move on. We're going to talk about two movies, and I think we're going to start with the new release from Apple TV, Apple TV Plus, which is the
hmm
John Carney directed, Eve Hewson starring Flora and Son. And Flora and Son is the story of a single mom living in Dublin, uh, named Flora. She has a son. Um, Starts out, she is a bit of an angry, well, not a bit. She's an angry party girl. Her son is 12. She sort of resents her life. She's very disconnected from him. Um, and the film is about her basically learning to connect with her son through music. It's a John Carney movie. I don't know if you've seen John Carney movies, but if you have seen like Sing Street or Begin Again, then you know that he makes movies that are about connecting to one another via music. And I don't really want to tell you much more than that because it is an adorable movie. And I'm just going to stop for a second because I meant to say this in the preamble. But so we're going to talk about two movies today, and I have a prediction I'd like to just get out there before we start talking, and that is that Simon and I are going to say pretty much exactly the same things about both of these movies. But I liked one and he didn't like the other. I liked one he didn't like, and he liked one that I didn't really like. But we're going to say
You
exactly the
didn't
same
like it?
things.
Whoa! Oh my god!
Yeah.
This is news.
To
This
be
is
to be
news.
fair, I wouldn't go so far as to say that I actively disliked the one that I didn't like as much, but I don't think it's great. So I think maybe a
Interesting.
better way to say it is that like I liked one and he didn't, and he loved one and I thought it was fine. But we're gonna
Interesting.
say almost exactly the same things about both of them.
Interesting.
So
So that's the end of the show. Thanks for joining us. Those are our opinions.
pretty much. So yeah,
Uh,
Flora and Son is, if you've seen John Carney movies, you sort of know what to expect. It is, I don't know if it's necessarily like it's a fairly basic plot. It's about a woman reconnecting with her son via music. But he makes movies that are very emotionally true, um, and can really get to the sort of emotional core of the things he's trying to illuminate. And I think Eve Hewson is really great in this. Nepo baby though she is, she's an excellent actress. Um, I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt is perfectly serviceable. He's totally fine. I think Jack Raynor is also perfectly good as the douchebag X. And then the movie also has a bunch of good songs in it, and one in particular that I'm upset to learn they're not putting forward for all the Oscars and awards. But I don't really know what else to say about this movie. It's a perfectly lovely watch for family night at home. It's on Apple TV Plus.
It's
You
not a
should,
family night at home movie.
yeah.
Are you insane?
What, you don't think
This
it
is not,
is?
no, not at all. There's like how old is the family are we talking about here?
Your 13-year-old
My
could
kids
definitely watch
couldn't
this
watch
movie.
Florence. No, they couldn't.
Yeah, they
Uh,
definitely could.
okay, so just for a reality check, my kids don't watch movies with this much like sexual innuendo and very overt language in it. Like this is not a movie I would show to my kids ever.
Yeah, this is definitely a movie I would have seen when I was like 12 or 13.
Oh my god! Wow.
Yeah.
Um. Okay.
Like, I don't think
Uh,
you should show this to like infants, to be
no,
clear, but like,
this is not this is I disagree. This is a family night movie on any
it's
level.
no, it's a perfectly serviceable movie. You throw on any night of the week. It's lovely. I don't think it's as good as Sing Street, um, but it's John Carney, man. He makes good emotional films, and I like them. And I'm guessing that it was so emotionally true that you didn't like it.
Uh, well, because I'm dead inside.
Yeah, yeah.
The I feel the same about this movie as I do about the other John Carney movie that I've seen, and that it's incredibly. I didn't like it as much as you. I just found it incredibly. Every bit of drama is so simplified, and so there's some bits I liked, some performances I liked. Jack Raynor's great, but the all the music just really it simplifies music to the point where I actually found it really cheesy. Actually, I found it really difficult to watch because first of all, I don't need Bono's daughter telling me how the working class can escape misery by writing the immaculately produced like songs using GarageBand. Like I just really disliked how its solution was so simplified and that it didn't feel authentic to me. And there's one take. So Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays this like rundown guitar teacher who's had his own drama and he's got to the same point. So of course he has parallels with Flora and everything. But he's such an asshole. Like 30 minutes into this movie, I texted you saying I'm 30 minutes into Flora and Son and I want to throw Joseph Gordon-Levitt out the fucking window. And at that point I was like, okay, there's one reductionist take when she's asking about what kind of music he likes, and she talks about a song she likes and he takes it apart. And it's such a music bro reductionist take, and it's such the kind of attitude towards music that is dangerously stupidly wrong. I thought, okay, so what he's doing is he's painting Joseph Gordon-Levitt as being like this bitter musician, and one of the lessons for his arc is going to be about you can find beauty in musical simplicity and lyrical simplicity if it connects with you. His whole thing is the song's got to change you, and it turns out his songs were shit anyway. And she rewrites them and they're slightly better. So, but that point, it never comes back again. So there's never a moment where he's like, oh yeah, I see now how my massively reductionist take made me look like an asshole and was really bad take. And it's just left in the movie without being addressed. In fact, they all get as happy an ending as they could get. And I'm just like, I disagree with so much about what this movie is saying about music and how music creation is actually done and how music performance is done and how it can be used. And I didn't like the songs. I didn't think the songs were good. um I thought, um the drama was incredibly simplistic, and there wasn't much in this movie that I liked actually.
Hmm. It's interesting because again, like I don't disagree that the plotting is simplistic, but I liked it because it really. And I'm going to say the exact opposite about the next movie too. Is that like in the way those plot points are executed is very, again, emotionally true, and I did find it quite authentic. I don't think there's a problem with it being simplistic as long as it hits the emotionality correctly, and I think that it did. I don't think you're wrong that Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character is a bit of an asshole. I do think he softens up as the movie goes, and I do wonder how much this, obviously having been made during COVID, might have
Mm,
impacted how they made it and why they made some character choices. Because you're right, he doesn't ever really get like his arc doesn't really resolve satisfactorily.
mhm,
But it's also sort of the point of the movie that like there's a moment where she gets to choose between like pursuing this relationship or sticking her ground and being there for her son, and she chooses the latter, which to be clear is 100% the right choice. But it
mhm,
does make kind of the relationship aspect and his arc kind of unresolved and still open for interpretation down the road, like maybe something happens after the movie's over, but it does leave that aspect of it perhaps a little bit unsatisfactory. um, but I don't necessarily mind because it's not really his movie, it's hers,
mhm.
right? Like um, and the relationship between her and the son, who's played by a kid called
Good
i'm
luck with
gonna
that one.
I'm gonna mispronounce this because it's Irish, but I think it's Oren Kinlan. Oren.
Who
I
knows?
don't know what the accent means in Gaelic.
No.
Um, but I think they're great, and I think they have a really interesting dynamic with Jack Rayner, who again plays the like ex of her and father of the kid. And I think that like the kid is really into like electronic music and hip hop, and his hip hop is terrible, but also that's kind of the point because he's like 11. It doesn't
Mm,
make a difference. Um, and just the fact that they're able to like finally truly connect through the music is the point of the movie for me. And seeing there's a couple of scenes that are like they're a bit montagey, but it does montage through them like seeing each other for the first time as people through this music, and they're just lovely. They're just wonderful. And the moment in which she really does have to make the choice between like, am I going to do the thing or am I going to stay with my son, I thought is very wonderfully performed and like really leaves you hanging. There's a moment where you're like, what choice is she going to make? Is she going to make, maybe she's going to go do the wrong thing? And then when she shows up, it felt really great to see that. And like Eve Houston is a good actress. Like she's Bono's daughter, but she's a good actress, and I very much enjoyed it.
okay. I don't know. I there's she her performance actually was good. I thought Jack Rayner was great. I thought the kid was fine,
Hmm.
but it just it didn't it felt inauthentic for me in so many ways. There's a couple of bits. So there's a human drama scene, if you like, when the consequences catch up with him, and she's desperately trying to mitigate the damage that is being laid down on him, and I think that's very very sweet. I like that, but the I just really from a movie that is all about the incredible connection you can make with music, which is such an important part of my life as well. All the the musical elements of this movie just didn't work for me at all, and were like glossed over and massively like simplistic, and and also the songs. I think I think you liking the songs is such a fundamental part of why you like this movie more than I did, because I didn't like this. I didn't think the songs were the songs that they were describing as good songs were not these songs, if that makes sense for me. But then that's purely subjective. So yeah, didn't really land for me.
Hmm. My bigger problem with the songs is that I understand that um, there's a big number that plays at the end. That's a perfectly serviceable pop song, I guess. but there's a much better song in the middle, and it's the one at the end that they're giving all the awards pushed to. Like there's a
Really
there's a what I think the best song in the movie is not the one they're pushing as an awards contender, and I
interesting.
find that
That
really
is weird.
upsetting. And it's even the song in the trailer as well, which doesn't make any sense because it is very clearly the best song in the movie.
Is
Um,
that the one she rewrites?
yeah, it's called "Meet in the Middle."
Yeah, that is
They
absolutely the best
they
one.
sing it together on a rooftop. It's
Yeah.
although via Skype. I will say the way that they play the Skype relationship, where like the camera will sort of he'll be on a screen and then the camera will circle around and he'll be in the room. I thought that was actually really not clever is maybe the wrong word, but I thought it was really effectively executed um, as a way to like highlight that they're still actually connecting in real life,
Yeah.
even though it's remote.
I just want to know which Windows laptop she was using to get a 6 hour battery life on a single Skype call on a rooftop. That was pretty
Oh
impressive.
no, the beginning of that scene has her running an extension cord.
Oh, of course. Of course.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. So how many stars are
um,
you going to give it? Because I'm going to give it 4 because I really liked it.
oh, oh, this is a 2 star movie for me.
Yeah. So phase 1 of my prediction accurate.
Wow. 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 I did not see 4 stars coming at any
Because
point.
like again, like the thing about it, like you're not wrong. Like it's simplistic. It's basic is maybe a pejorative word now that I don't think I like to use anymore. But like yeah, it's fairly simplistically plotted and it's very straightforward. And if you don't like the music, that's a big thing for sure. And but like those points are accurate for both of us. It really landed for me. So
Hmm.
it's he makes lovely movies, and I hope he keeps making lovely movies forever.
Yeah.
I wonder if you like his other movies actually, because like the style of the music from this to Begin Again, especially, is fairly similar.
On Sing
So
Street feels the
like
same.
if you just don't like his music, that would be a big thing against watching his movies,
Yeah, maybe.
because he does. I believe he co-writes all the music with a guy
Mhm.
called oh, what's his name? He was a pop star, Gary Clark. Co-writes all the songs with Gary Clark, who was a
Don't know who
pop.
that is.
He's a pop performer in the '80s and '90s, I believe. He's a Scottish guy.
Huh.
Anyway, all right. So
Yeah.
that is Flora and Son, which is out
Wow.
now on. It's apparently it's in a limited theatrical engagement, so you may have it in your city. But if you don't, it's also out on Apple TV Plus now.
Yep. Yep.
And let's move on.
Always
So
on top.
we're gonna move on to the movie we had opposite reactions to. So Simon, why don't you take us through the basic plot line of
Ah.
Gareth Edwards, the creator?
Right. Well, in a world where AI has been designed to assist humanity, and it sort of there's a sort of a credits montage of that introduces like overlapping news stories, and it starts where AI kind of is now, and then it goes to this sci-fi just tomorrow version of AI where there's robot policemen helping us, and there's robots like traffic cops helping us, and AI is our friend until it's very much not. And within this is not a spoiler, but within the first minute, it cuts to a news story is interrupted by a massive nuke that goes off in Los Angeles, and from that point, humanity in the West bans AI, but in New Asia, so this imagined sort of Asian conglomerate, um, still makes and supports AI and develops it, and they very clearly say that they're not at war against the people of New Asia. They're at war against AI and the people that make AI. And the creator is this mythical like father figure of AI who is still developing AI, and so they figure out that he's basically the rebel leader. If they can take out the head of AI, then that will be a way of winning that war. And to this, they built this multi-trillion-dollar Death Star. Sorry, flying bad place with laser guided bombs that can nuke things from orbit, and they basically zip this thing around the globe in no time at all, and it takes out problematic targets. if you've ever read anything about America's approach to Vietnam, it's pretty much space Vietnam, and in literal Vietnam. And one of the soldiers within this American unit, through circumstances, um, finds himself in a sticky situation, and then he's involved with someone who he believes is dead, and then he gets, just when he thinks he's out, he gets dragged back in by the Western forces because they found evidence that the person he thought was dead is actually alive, and they're about to go, and they know where Namata is, and they're going to nuke it all. And if he wants, he can come and try and like save this one person, but they're going to nuke like the father of AI. So uh, the movie is basically John David Washington's character going with this pristine, innocent American army force, and then making decisions about the weapon they've gone to destroy, what that could mean, the repercussions for that, and also what his place is, what his involvement is with this weapon, and his loyalties evolve and change as he learns about what the AI has become in their culture. And it leads to a conclusion, and then the movie ends. And I don't want to say much more than that. But but and here's a big but. This is by the director. This is by the director of Gareth Edwards. Sorry, Gareth Edwards, who directed Rogue One, or more importantly, directed 80% of Rogue One before Tony Gilroy had to come in and make an ending that was interesting. Because, by all accounts, and it was done very amicably, his Rogue One didn't. Was more episodic and didn't really have a big conclusion, kind of meandering, a little bit overlong, didn't have a peak at the end, and Tony Gilroy came in and fixed Road One with the however you feel about the Darth Vader scene, it added a climax to that movie. The Death Star added a climax to that movie, which wasn't there before. And the fascinating thing about the creator is Gareth Edwards going, well, this is what I would have done. And so as a result, it is a spectacularly beautiful, well shot, incredible sci-fi movie that is meandering and overlong and kind of episodic, and I think it's going to make no money, and in 20 years I think this is our era's Blade Runner. I think this is a, as our film associate Tom put it, this is a watershed moment of modern sci-fi, in purely, if nothing else, in terms of the design. The CG is outstanding. He has a similar approach to Neil Blomkamp, where he desaturates a lot of the picture, so the CG elements don't stand out, and also they're robot elements, so there's much less uncanny valley. Um, there are some truly gut wrenching moments, um, and I think it's an epic piece of sci-fi that isn't perfect, but is one of the most interesting pieces of sci-fi I've seen in years. And I think nobody can shoot sci-fi expanse like Gareth Edwards. Like he captures scale like very few other people can. And it's not perfect, but I enjoyed the hell out of it, and it had some lovely moments, and was an exceptional piece of sci-fi. The end.
I feel like you're just talking in a monotone, so like I ran out of time because everything you said is basically true, except for the fact that it's not great. like I was having this conversation, so I met up with a bunch of our like film friends yesterday, and some of us were talking about the creator, and one of our mutuals who was there was like, "Oh, I haven't seen it yet," and I was like, "Oh, have you seen Star Wars?" And they were like, "Yes," and I was like, "Congratulations, you have seen the creator."
Come on, that's not fair.
It's entirely fair because it's the same fucking story.
Star Wars has a big epic flying thing at the end that threatens to laser someone, and oh,
Yeah, and I mean, I said to you when we finished watching this, because we did watch it in person, and I will 100% concede that it is a masterpiece of world building. Um, it's exceptional at creating a world that is both plausible and lived in, even though it's only set about 40 years ahead of where we are today. Um, Everything about the way the tech looks and functions and feels is amazing. And this is going to be again the same thing that we talked about in the last film. It is overly simplistic, and I did say when we finished watching it that like I feel like it's the kind of movie like Star Wars that very openly wears its influences on its sleeve. And maybe the problem is that unlike Star Wars, we're old enough that we see all the references, right? Whereas with Star Wars, we were kids and we hadn't seen all the like samurai films and westerns that eventually went to inspire that movie. Upon further reflection, I would go further and say that the problem isn't that we see all of the references, is that there's only one. There's really only one. It's just his start. It's just his Star Wars. I mean, there's probably a few little visual flourishes that are from something else, but he literally is just like, this is his Star Wars. This is the Star Wars he wanted to make, and that's fine. It's not bad. It's definitely worth seeing as a piece of semi-original science fiction filmmaking. It's definitely worth seeing to see the kind of effects and world building that can happen on a budget of $80 million instead of
Mm,
300 goddamn $1,000,000.
it looks
Like this movie
incredible.
like does look incredible. It looks better than any superhero movie I've seen.
Hmm.
uh I can't even think of one that I would say definitely looks better, right? Like it's incredible how well the effects are designed. Just the designs of the tech and everything, but then how well it's put together and how well the CG is integrated and how realistic and again lived in, I think, is an important one. It looks very very lived in and feels very authentic. But it's also just, I guess, like super basic, but doesn't hit the emotional beats that it needs to. So it doesn't really land in any way than the most basic. Like, oh, that was nice. Like, oh, I get what he's intending there. Not, oh, I feel that. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, um, the resolution at the end is a little like we've talked about films being basic, but there's a resolution for a character at the end that is so on the nose as to be a little bit infuriating. Um, and I don't know, like I'm not gonna say it's a bad movie because it's not, but I just fundamentally disagree at this point that it is. You know, I've seen several people call it a masterpiece, and I kind of have to like shake my head when I see it, and like I love that for them. It's great,
I,
but I do not agree.
I mean, I think time is going to be uh, is really going to help this film because I think it's meandering and overlong in the same way that Blade Runner is. Like I don't think Blade Runner is a perfect movie. I actually think 2049 is a better film. But I think in terms of what it did for the sci-fi storytelling at that time, I think this is that movie as well. If not the actual the narrative itself, but the visual design, the work. Like, well, I can't think of the last time I saw such a sumptuous, detailed, big swing sci-fi that felt like something I wanted to watch. I haven't managed to watch the second Avatar movie yet because I just don't feel the same way when I'm watching The Way of Water. It doesn't feel that sort of deep, right? It doesn't feel that complex. It doesn't ring as this one did. And I will say that um, even if you end up not liking this film, you're going to regret not seeing this in the cinema. If you think, "Oh, I'll
I
just
mean,
watch it when it's at home," this is the as big a screen as you can see, like even IMAX if you can. Just go and experience this, and don't be that person in 3 or 4 years like I am with Tenant, wishing that you'd gone out and seen it on the biggest screen possible. It's because it's incredible to watch.
I mean, yeah, I will not dispute that it is visually one of the most stunning things I've seen in ages. It's just everything else about it that I think is a little too basic.
Mhm.
And like I say, like I don't have a problem with being basic. I liked Flora and Son. I just needed, if it's going to be basic, it needs to like hit the emotional beats in a way that is affecting, and it did not land for me in that way at all.
Yeah, I've seen the basic thing from a few reviews, and I don't get it. I don't think this is a basic film. I think it says some interesting things about human robot integration, and of course the Americans are the big bad empire. Of course they are, and I don't I don't agree that it's so basic that it actually affects the my enjoyment of the film.
Well,
Like
that's
it,
great.
there's
I love that
definitely
for you. I don't.
fuck off. Like I love that for you? Isn't that gay? Like that's gay code for fuck off, isn't it? I
I mean,
like
it
no
might be.
offense on it.
I can neither
I love
confirm nor
that for you.
disconfirm.
Uh,
Um,
I there's some moments in this that hit my parent button for sure. Like towards the end, there's the kid. Like there's a kid in this who's a major part, and the kid is fantastic. It's his first acting role, and he's fantastic in this. And some very funny moments, and some very like emotional, gut wrenching moments. And I liked the resolution. I liked it. I liked how it. Of course, it was going to end that way, and I wasn't disappointed by it. I
I
thought
mean,
it.
in terms of like humans interacting with AI, it doesn't tread much ground that we haven't seen before in better films. In terms of like
Which film? Tell me
America as
what
the
way?
big bad, like that again is just like, have you seen Star Wars? Because this is just Star Wars. Like, it's just,
There's a lot of
um,
Star Wars in this film.
like there's a lot of Star Wars in this film, and especially like famously when he made Rogue One, there's a big battle on the planet Scarif that's like a
Mhm,
semi-tropical place, and
mhm.
famously that entire sequence was completely reworked. And guess what? There's a big battle with huge mechanized tanks in a semi-tropical location in this movie,
And it looks amazing.
and it does look
And it's a good
amazing.
scene. It's a good scene.
It's perfectly fine. Yeah, I
Oh,
don't
come
really
on.
care about any of the characters who were involved in the actual battle. Um, and I would say that, like, in terms of the way I would fully just to say right now, I'm fully not qualified to engage with this fact, but I do find that that's like where the AI is hiding. All of Asia is flattened into one culture, like one big, like it's just
Mhm,
Asia.
mhm,
That seems super problematic to me. Like I don't, I can't quite like it's ostensibly. If you look at the map, there's one scene where there's a map and they're in Vietnam, which again, Star Wars. Um, but like it's never referred to anything other than just it's Asia. And there's characters who are Indian, and there's characters who are Japanese and Chinese and Vietnamese, and they're all just smushed into this one culture, and I find it super problematic. Um, and again, like I don't think that's necessarily like you can engage with stuff and love it, and acknowledge that it's problematic. I don't have a problem with that, but like I do feel the need to acknowledge that that feels really problematic to me. Like it feels really overly simplified in a way as to be problematic.
mhm.
And I don't again, as a white dude from Canada, I don't feel fully qualified to fully engage with it. I feel like I need to talk to some people, but I just wonder how like people from Vietnam might react to this. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. Um, But anyway, it's fine. It's totally fine. You should definitely see it on a huge ass screen. It's totally fine. There's nothing. It's just not the masterpiece that I think we were all hoping for, is my opinion. You know,
Interesting.
like
So, how many stars are you landing with the creator? Are we going to have mirror image here?
no,
If you
because
say,
I will say this is just good enough to be a 3 for me. Like
uh,
I didn't
I love
dislike
that
it.
for you.
I just don't. The more I think about it, the more my opinion diminishes. Put it that way.
Okay, that's interesting because the more I think about it, the more it slightly goes up. So, I
Mm.
think we're not really saying anything different apart from uh, the story beats. I think work a bit better for me. I mean, the what's interesting about this film is that they started costing up ILM doing all the virtual sets, and so he did a test where they went to Vietnam and Cambodia, and he shot like a teaser with a film camera, and then used CG just to enhance bits of it, and got got the green light based on that. And so basically, it cost 80 million instead of 300 because they used real life locations and then just overlaid CG on top of it.
Hmm.
And I I really, really hope that becomes much more of the norm. That is a sign that people pick up on, because it just looks so much better than any Marvel virtual sets or the Star Wars volume capital V sets. Just it's so much more uh, incremental detail, and then the CG that sits on top of it so beautifully. It's staggering. It's a masterpiece of visual design and visual storytelling. I think we can agree on that. And then the rest of that is whether you like the story that's being told within that. And I think I did more than you. So
I mean,
it's a
I know
full,
you did more than I did.
yeah.
So it's,
But I mean, Rogue One is probably it's it's not my most watched Star Wars, because the original has had a couple of decades head start. But it's the one I watch all the time now, all the time, and
Mhm.
it's like my comfort movie. I would have babies with that film. And I know, like Tony Gore is also a genius, and came in and does not care about the Star Wars legacy, which is why Andor is so good, and made like a good end to this movie, instead of Gareth Edwards probably being a bit more meandering and reverential, maybe. But who knows? Because we're never going to see that cut. But
I mean, to
everything
be,
up to that point, I love in Rogue One. I love his way of direction. I love his visual design,
I
and
mean,
I
again,
love.
I don't dislike any of his movies. I don't think that Rogue One. I know that like there's a number of people I know who Rogue One really connects for, and I
Mhm,
also think it's fine. But I
mhm,
also know that I think that 2014 Godzilla is one that I love that you think
mhm.
is just fine at best. So like
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
but the thing we can probably agree on with all of those films is that visually and directorially they are
Hmm.
great, right?
Yeah,
Like
I
all of them
can't.
are great.
I can't wait to
Um
see what he does next.
and like even like talk about his direction style being kind of like reverential, like just yeah, remember that next time you're watching Godzilla and like when he like attacks Hawaii, just like it's true you don't I would still probably agree you don't see enough of Godzilla until the end of that movie, but the way
Hmm.
it shoots the people around him is I think
Hmm.
pretty incredible.
Hmm. Yeah, he's one of the big sort of sci-fi directors that I'm genuinely excited about, because they're delivering something new that feels so detached from a lot of the other superhero sci-fi that we're getting out of the machine.
Yeah,
It's
although I
very.
would say like there is a thing I do I will say the film does have one major sort of visual issue for me, and that's that it doesn't seem to know where it is at any given point.
Oh, I don't care about
Um,
that.
because
You were you.
there's a thing that gets shot down over L.A. and crash lands in Vietnam, which just to be for the record
It's
is like thousands of miles away.
a very slow descent.
Yeah,
Very, very slow.
it's not though. It just like gets shot down and crashes in a totally different continent, thousands of miles
Uh,
away.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, there's
For,
definitely
it's
a thing.
it's a 4-star movie for me. It's not a 5, but it's a very good 4-star movie, and I do recognize that the pacing and the plotting is a bit up and down, but I really enjoyed it. Go see it, please go see it on a big screen. This is a big screen movie.
I mean, and again, if nothing else, like I hope that Hollywood looks at it and goes, "Oh, we can make something that looks this good for so
Mm,
much less money."
God, can you imagine? I hope so. Very
And
much.
I don't. Um, I again, as always, I have very little hope that they're going to take away the right lessons from this film, but
Yes.
they
Yeah.
they will definitely they'll look at it and see something. I just hope they see the things that we see in
Hmm.
that regard.
Well, I mean, I hope it makes money, because their only way they're going to learn anything from it is if they make the money. If they make, like, what do they have to make for it to be a success now? It's like 3 times the budget or something stupid like that.
Historically,
So
it's always been double because you have to remember that like if
imagine.
something costs them 150 million dollars to make, bare minimum, like before you even factor in advertising, the cinema takes half. So
Right.
if a film grosses $100 million, then the cinema chains have taken 50 of it.
Wow. So I want this film to be a really like good financial success, so they can actually the studios will see it and think, what can we learn from it, instead of, oh well, that failed, so we won't do that again if it doesn't
Hmm.
learn anything. but we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, there you
Good.
go. We're gonna wrap up there because we're running out of time.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for listening. And like I say, both these movies are out. You can go see them. Go to a cinema. Go to Apple TV Plus, and you'll have a lovely time. If you like what you've heard, again, we do have a Patreon. You can subscribe for as little as $2 Canadian a month, and you can find that in the show notes or at patreon.com/MC Simpson. There's too many social media networks in the world right now, so you can find each of us at our personal websites. Simon is temporarypen.com, and I am stretched.ca, where you can find all of our most recent writing and podcast appearances and such. And we're here in Vancouver on the unceded and ancestral territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. And with that, thank you so much for listening and for joining us on this awesome Friday.
Bye.